Um, Tell me about your first Haggadah, just like you asked me in the first half hour. Where did this bubble up from your consciousness? And my next question to Dan will be, as I go through Dave's progression in Haggadahs, I'd like to know where you jumped into the picture with Dave once you started collaborating with him on the backyard plays we're going to talk about also. Um, at which point is that, by the way? Did you know Dave when he published his first Trump Haggadah?
I didn't. So
No,
Dave, you can
yeah,
start.
Okay.
I'll run through it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar, Martin, where like we're just the past service has always been really boring in our life in my life, and I think Dan can recognize that too. That was for him as well, and so I had a family in LA that I wanted to like write funny things for because it was just so boring, and they really responded to it. And then we share with friends and family, and they were just like, "This is great!" Like they were using it in their lives, and then someone was just like, "You should publish this." And so at the time, I was really into political things. I was like really into like political humor, and Trump had just been elected, and it was just fun to think of him as like this Pharaoh character who just believed he was Moses, and obviously that's shifted a lot over time, especially for Jews in this era. But so that was kind of the impetus for the Trump one, and it was I don't know if I even think I had even seen the one you mentioned, the Harry Potter one, or I just was like, I'm gonna put this on Amazon and see what happens, and it like took off. I kind of like you, like it was like a top 500 book that spring. Everybody was, really into it, and then as a screenwriter who's not the most successful screenwriter, I've always wanted to write for a show like Seinfeld. I've always wanted to write on a TV show, and then I felt like I was like, oh, I can like write an episode of Seinfeld that teaches Judaism, so I get the best of both worlds. I can like pretend I was on this staff and write this fun thing, and also give my community something that they're really going to enjoy. Who were like everybody I know who's Jewish loves that show. So that's how that one came about. And then Biden came into office, and it was like, well, this feels like another obvious sequel, and that was fun. And then Curb, like I just love Larry David, and I got really into spirituality more myself, and so I made that kind of like a Kabbalah themed one. So it's Kabbalah and Curb, and then yeah, the more controversial one was Kanye.
Yeah.
I that's getting more and more controversial, but I really like him, or I've liked him, and I've also have his mental health issues, and so I can kind of relate to him, and I also just love music. So there's actually a lot more than just Kanye. Like there's Bob Dylan, there's Billy Joel, there's tons. Like everybody else is a Jewish musician, and him at a Seder table. So maybe it needs a
He's going
rebrand
to
at
be
this point. Maybe
offended by that, Dave. He's not going
yeah,
to
it's also
like
supposed to
that.
like give him something to like think about and be like, hey, maybe you're wrong about some of these things. So that was a really cool one. I actually like that one, though it's hard to talk about sometimes, but it's got a lot of fun music in it. Then Mel Brooks was like, he made up parodies, in a big way. Like he made movies that were parodies that people hadn't really seen that on a movie screen. So I felt like, I've been doing, 5 or 6 books of parodies, so why not make a parody book about, the Jewish king of parodies? So that was really fun. And somewhere around Kanye, Mel Brooks, I met Dan at this pickleball tournament, and a celebrity pickleball tournament, and we just hit it off because we love tennis and pickleball. And Dan also, his dog is named Cowen, and then Dan invited me to start doing these theaters with him with Seinfeld, and then I'll let Dan tell the rest of the story. Yeah, so
Dave, what was the shirt you were wearing at the pickleball tournament? It was something about God.
oh yeah, I think I have a shirt that's like a Harvard insignia, and it says "I need God," being the joke that like Ivy League people I went to Ivy League school, like we often like never talked about God or anything spiritual or religious at that time in history. It was always just like this very other kind of mindset of science and a liberal arts thought. So it was like a meme shirt that was like that. I think maybe that connected us. But yeah, I've always been interested in kind of spirituality coming more into my life in weird ways. Yeah.
So, Martin, you got to see
Um,
the scene. We're like at the celebrity pickleball tournament. We're watching Emma Watson play pickleball. She's awesome. She's a great pickleball player. And I turn to my right and I see this like guy wearing a shirt that says "I need God." I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. And I think within the first 2 minutes, Dave told me about his Seinfeld Haggadahs.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly how it came up, but my wife and I love getting people together. We had the same experiences growing up. Passover was so boring. You would
so
like
boring.
prepare the paragraph you were going to read, and then it got to you at the table, and you try and read it in your best English, and no one gave a shit. Can I say shit? No one gave a shit.
Me too. I don't have a dump button. I don't know how that works on Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try not to curse going forward, but there's a lot of built up sadness around how boring Passover was. So I said, Dave, I love what you've done. Second night of Passover this year, let's get some friends together in my backyard and we'll do a Seinfeld Seder. Like, let's just do an
Yeah,
event. We do a lot of events in my
yeah.
backyard around
Dan
this
does these
comedy show. Yeah.
backyard comedy shows that are really popular in LA and Larchmont, and they're going almost monthly now for a couple of years. And so he's used to doing huge backyard events that are really fun.
So we did this event about I think it was 25 people, 90s theme, and we read the Seinfeld Haggadah like it was like a table read of an episode of Seinfeld. And man, this thing is so funny. It's written, it could be a Seinfeld episode. It's hysterical. People were doing Israeli accents. It was just like
Ah,
wild to see people come out of their shells to read the text that Dave wrote. And that event was so much fun and such a hit and kind of made us all feel like this is what our ancestors were like wanted to get together and laugh and have fun. And then out of that came the idea like let's write a new one.
Yeah, and that was awesome because like I'll be honest, like I think Dan really revitalized The Office. Did you read it yet, Martin? I can't remember if you
yes,
read The
actually,
Office. I got it.
I just finished reading
Yeah.
it this weekend.
Oh, nice.
I should preface this by saying that I've seen a couple of episodes, so
Oh, okay.
and then I had to refamiliarize myself with the characters because I really wanted their voice in my head when I was reading it. So I did the best that I could because I know you put in the effort, you guys, to make that true to form and true to life.
Oh, yeah,
So I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Thanks.
yeah. I think what Dan brought to it is just like so much revitalization of like an audience focused thing. Like I think the Seinfeld was so audience focused, and then the Kanye one was a little bit weird. But Dan is just like, let's make this like as funny as possible. Let's make this as like true to The Office as possible. And I think it really comes through. Like, I talk to us. Like, Dan, what do you think is like? We basically were like, let's do season three, season four. Let's stop there. Let's make it like a time to the actual arc of the show. Like, what was our thought process? Would you say?
It's like this was like if you went into the archives of the writer's room on The Office, this would have been
Yeah,
pitched as an episode towards the end of season three of The Office, which I think is some of the funniest, best TV of all time.
Okay.
And in this episode, they happen to stage a Passover Seder in order to save Dunder Mifflin as a company. In
yeah. And so
theory,
the
that
funny
could have
thing,
happened, you know?
yeah. So the client they're looking for is Maxwell House. They're trying to get Maxwell House as a client because Maxwell House makes all these pagodas for
Uh-huh.
they're giving away for free, and it's all these paper they're printing. And so we're like, oh, okay, Dunder Mifflin is a paper company. They're going to want to get a client to save their company to print paper. So that was kind of the larger concept. And then there's these other storylines revolved around Judaism. I don't know if you so Roy is Pam's boyfriend before she gets with Jim later in the show, and he's pretty mean to her. Like he's just always like the worst boyfriend. I mean, you look back on it, it's like wow, I can't believe they're together for 3 seasons. And so we have this storyline where he's like they get tested for 23andMe, and she finds out she's partly Jewish. She's really happy to like celebrate her heritage, but Roy is like low key anti-Semitic and is really rubbed the wrong way by it. So we're really kind of edgy in its own way of what we're playing with in terms of mixing the Judaism with the Office. But there is still always every part of the Seder is in there. I think you always have a more like rabbinical, liturgical, like textual approach to it, whereas ours is maybe more Hollywood and more free of some of those ties. But I think there's still always teaching there. You're always going to learn something about the Passover through the text. What would you say about that, Dan? Yeah.
Well said.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm trying to do is as I mentioned to Dave in the first half hour, I still want it to be a practical Haggadah, and I want people to appreciate what I'm doing by making it both an absolutely practical Haggadah and fun for everyone sitting at the Seder.
Okay.
So you're
Yeah.
like Dave said, you're a little freer from those constraints, but I like constraints because I find constraints better for my creativity. Like
Oh, for sure.
when something has to fit into a certain box, your brains work differently to make it happen.
It's
Um,
really well said, Martin. I
yeah.
think just having that structure of this needs to happen, then this needs to, that was super helpful and I think saved us a lot of time creatively.
Cool. And do you have any other ideas that you're working on, or you're exhaling after writing The Office? And why was The Office the one? Did you like draw up like a boggle chart of things you both enjoy pop culturally, and then The Office was the one that you both like? Oh, we both like this one. How did that work?
I think I talked about it, and then I was like, "You should do this with you, man." And you were like, "Actually, that's one of my favorite shows." Like you like, I know the show so well, and you knew. I think you knew it better than me, honestly. When we sat down and started working on it, like you, and so Dan's a comedian, and he's really good with voices. He's very like, you're almost like an actor. You could be an actor in the future life or this life, and so I think we were like both were like, this is a show we both know. I don't know. What was your how would you look at it? Yeah.
I view the world in terms of lists. Like, what are your top three favorite fruits, or like that kind of thing. And I always have a list of my top three favorite comedies of all time, and it's Seinfeld, Arrested Development, The Office. Seinfeld, Arrested Development, The
Oh,
Office are
there you
my top
go.
three of all
There you
time.
go.
You've done Seinfeld. We talked about Arrested Development for a hot second and thought it was a
It's a
little
little bit
too
niche
niche.
right at the moment.
And then The
Yeah.
Office, the big thing, Martin, is it felt like it was in the zeitgeist because they are currently filming the sequel to The Office, which I believe is called The Paper. I don't know that much about it, but I know
Oh
Alex
my gosh.
Edelman is in it. And so The Office is going to be back in the public zeitgeist in the next year with a new series.
Oh, cool. And also, like, even my sister, I was like, oh, I did this one this year, and she was like, oh, cool, I didn't know you're doing another one. And then she was like, I'm actually watching The Office right now. Like, she's watching, like, she's already like into like season five again with her husband. So I think like people really are always watching that show. It's one of those shows that's like, it's on Peacock or Netflix, whatever it's on. Like, the people are really, really loving it still.
Yeah,
So
kids
we
in
wanted
high
to
school are
feel that.
watching it.
Yeah, a lot of memes. Like people are always posting The Office memes, at least in my algorithm. Um, but yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to Dan specifically about this, but I'm interested in doing more with him, and I just want to go through all kind of like the canon of comedies and kind of
Yeah.
like The Simpsons, and there's so many you could do. And I'm ready. I want to just go forever. Like I know, Mark, me and you are competing in a way. Are you going to keep going yearly? Are you going to go yearly? Like I plan on. I want to go until I die yearly. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal goal. First of all,
Uh,
I don't know if you've seen that I post every time I publish a book, I build the stack, and I
Yeah.
put it next to my foot, and my goal is to have it reach the top of my head. So,
wow.
and if it,
Oh, I didn't know that.
oh,
Okay.
absolutely, that is the goal.
How
So,
tall are you?
5'8.5". So, my book stack is almost a foot. So, so.
Okay.
Lot to go,
Yeah,
lot to
yeah, yeah. I have
go.
to like I think I have to publish another 113, but if I publish thicker books,
Yeah.
we
Are
can
these all your books or Haggadahs? Are these
all my
all of
books,
them?
my books, they reach my
Oh, all
calf.
of them.
They
Okay.
reach my
Got
calf.
it. Got it. Wow.
So yeah, that's my goal. That's what I'm working on. I'll never stop. I'm the kind of guy, once I'm addicted to something, I will never become unaddicted to it. So it's a good thing I've made some healthy choices in my life.
Yeah, like running. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, as we mentioned way at the top of this program, I just completed a half marathon this morning,
Oh,
and
cool.
I've done a bunch of marathons, and I'm like, I'm not the kind of guy, people, they finish the marathon and they're like, I'm done, never again. And I'm like, I don't understand you. It was, if you enjoyed it, so then you must do it again and again and again and again ad nauseum. So yeah, so I'm in this for the long haul as well. Um, and I'm always looking at your idea, frankly, to see what I might enjoy. We've both tackled. By the way, we're not the only tacklers of the Seinfeld canon. So you did the yada
It's
yada, and I did
true.
the Festivus. There was a Rabbi Sam Reinstein. He
He did
published.
another one.
He did it.
Yeah.
It was called Haggadah About Nothing. So
Yeah.
so he gave it a
He's a
rabbinic.
rabbi
He
too,
is.
so
He gave it a
his was more
rabbinical
real.
spin, and it's more of an erudite rendition of
Yeah,
Seinfeld, but that is like well covered just because it's Seinfeld is so classic.
it
Um,
is.
and by the way, has caught on with the current generation, just like Friends has, which is just like a marvelous thing to have occurred in the universe.
Wow.
It's just amazing. I wrote a whole bunch of notes about everything, Dan, that you said before, and I have to follow up on those. You
Sure.
actually named your dog after Cohen?
Of course, AFI for short. Sometimes people don't know what the hell that is. So in LA, we say AFI, AFI for American Film Institute is
Oh,
kind of our
beautiful.
cover if we don't want to explain it. Sometimes we're just like it's a Jewish thing. But in LA, people we say it to are like, that's amazing.
I mean,
Okay.
that seems like part of the fates of us getting together for this stuff is dog is literally named Cowen. I mean, it doesn't get more,
So for me than that.
kismet than that.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I have homework for you guys. Have you ever seen the clip of Larry David presenting at an awards show where he talks about being a rich prick versus a poor schmuck?
No, enlighten
No.
us.
No. Well, that's for you to take away, and for all the viewers, it's one of the funniest things you'll possibly ever see.
Well, I'll tell you, I love doing the Curb Your Enthusiasm one because I love putting the Kabbalah into it. I don't know. Did you take a look at that one ever, Martin? Or
I've
can't
read
remember.
everything you've ever written.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, brother. That's nice. I like that one because it's like Larry's so unhappy, the whole show. He never gets unhappy. And it's like I do think that and even I think that bringing some spirituality to your life can make you happier. And so I think that there's a funny irony to that one in particular where it's like, okay, we're kind of teaching you about Kabbalah, about spirituality in a funny way and maybe that's going to help you if you look into it. So I really that one I particularly loved. I think it was really funny. It was also really like helpful potentially.
Oh,
And
very cool.
actually, Jay Michelson, who's a rabbi, he helped me with that one. He does a lot of reviews for the Forward. We became friends. We did some reviews for my earlier ones, and he kind of fed me Kabbalah interpretations of Passover, and I put those into the book. It was actually that book, the Holistic Haggadah, Dan, that I share with you. That was one of the ones that he
Yeah.
gave me as kind of inspiration. So I think there's a lot of sustenance with some of these books. Some of them are just pure funny and weird, and some of them are going to help you out maybe.
All right. I have a little trivia for you guys.
Yes.
You mentioned Maxwell House. So I was commissioned by the Jewish Book Council to write an article about the history of the Haggadah. And I called it A Brief History of the Haggadah. And I mentioned, of course, mine, and I threw in Dave's as well. And there was one particular factoid that I found that you must find fascinating. If the Maxwell House Haggadah was an actual published book, it would be the seventh best-selling book of all time.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Yeah,
Wow,
like between two of the
fascinating.
Harry Potters or something like that. And I
How
and
did
I
you determine that statistic? That's a really
because
interesting
I saw it
statistic.
written up. It sold X like several hundred million, and it ranks right up there.
Were
It's
Several
they
hundred
given away
million.
for free? How did
Yeah,
they
yeah. I
price them?
mean,
They're
to
giving away.
say, but yes. So 150 million, I think, were printed. The number could be wrong, but I
Right.
do
Wow,
know it's between a couple of Harry Potter books in the top 10, and it's
Wow.
number seven.
wow. We have a
Uh,
That's a
joke
great
like that
stat.
in our book, actually. I mean,
oh,
you guys keep talking. I'll see if I can find the joke that's basically that.
Yeah.
um, here's a question. You've written your books. My books are uh, not tied into human personalities, except for the Festivus Haggadah, which is tied into George Costanza very much. But yours are very human personality. Have any of your books reached any of the people that you parody? And have you ever gotten feedback from any human being at all invoked by anything you've ever written? Or
Well,
even
you have a
close?
story about this, Dan. Did you give one of did you give the Seinfeld one to Jason Alexander?
Yeah, Jason Alexander did a so George Costanza, Jason Alexander did a
Uh-huh.
book reading at the local bookstore here in Larchmont Village. And I have to say, he was so cool and nice. And like he you read this like picture book to kids that could not care about him at all. They're like running over all over the room. And afterwards I went up to him and I slipped him Dave's Haggadah. I said, "Look what you inspired." And he looks at me and goes, "This is better than Maxwell House."
But did
That's
he do it
funny.
with passion? Did he do it like
He
he
took
got
it
into
with
it?
passion, and I'm sure he,
I think
didn't read it.
there's a photo too. But yeah, there's a quote here, Maxwell House. So Michael Scott says, he's a Maxwell House is the largest publisher of Passover Haggadahs. The book was a promotional tool. They started in 1934, and those books are still printed today, hundreds of pages long, thousands of copies every year. I guess it should be millions of copies. On great American paper and given away for free, all to sell more coffee. Because of our great Jewish American songwriter Leonard Bernstein wrote in West Side Story, I like to be in America. Okay, buy me in America. Everything free in America for a small fee in America. So yeah, I think Maxwell House does this weird thing where they like give it away for free, but they're also like getting money because you're buying coffee, which I thought So I don't know how you define the millions of copies, but it's interesting that they
Yeah,
did that.
yeah, absolutely. Wow, we're at the top of the hour. that we've spent together. Would you like to turn it over to Q&A if you think anybody might have any questions?
But we got we don't have that many potential, but
That's
we
true.
got Nat and Zal. But yeah, go for it if anybody wants to try question.
And if not, we can continue the conversation. It's all good.
I have
Um,
one for the room. If
Yeah.
it's is there, and anyone could chime in, like I guess for your work, Dave, it's been mainly TV shows, I guess not entirely. What do you think would like how do you pick your source material? And Martin, if you want to chime in too, like what do you think tickles your fancy? What are you drawn to?
Who's first?
uh, yeah, I guess I would say I did the two political ones, and I do want to do another Trump one, honestly, in his term. I know that's going to be controversial, but I want to do another Trump one, and then there was the Mel Brooks one, which is more movies. I would like to do like a Judd Apatow or like a Woody Allen. Like I do like I really want to run the gamut of every kind of like Jewish American entertainer. Even like so Seth Rogen, those kinds of guys. I think anything's fair game. I think it has been TV because TV is kind of like an episode, and like a theater could be an episode. But you know, yeah, that's how I think about it. Just Jewish American entertainers and politicians. Recently, I've been thinking about it. What about you, Martin?
Me, actually, as we were talking, I remembered some other ideas that have been bandied around, you know, having bubbled up out of my own brain or people coming at me. But the Star Trek Haggadah is an idea that's come at me.
That would
Um,
go well with the Star Wars. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so and I'm thinking about it, but there's so many Star Treks and so many Moseses that I don't know how to constrict it to like the four main Starfleet commanders. Like how does that work? Because I think there's been nine series. Like how do I narrow it down without ticking off the people who will be like, how do you leave out Deep Space Nine when you raise this series? So I'm not sure what to do with that, but it's an idea that's out there. And I actually started writing the Klingon Haggadah. And then I
There you go.
realized, and then I researched how many people actually speak Klingon on this little ball of blue of ours, and the answer is 32 humans.
32.
32. So
Wow.
that's my target audience. If I
How many of
would
them are
write
Jewish though, too?
so if you go with statistics, so two would be Jewish,
Oh
and that's
wow.
my target audience. But I don't think that will go over very well.
And one of them is you, apparently. So you have
Exactly.
you and someone else.
So I'm going to
Very
sell
funny.
one book to one stranger, and that'll take up a year of my life. I don't think so. But I started trying. I tried to make a transliterated version, like I had Klingon on one side, and then the pronunciation, and then the Hebrew and the English translation. And I made 2 pages of this, and I was looking at it. I was like, nobody in the world is gonna buy this. But at least I started. Like a lot of ideas are abandoned if they don't work. But I always love trying to at least start the creative process. So I started it with that one. That's not going anywhere.
Have you seen the book 300 Ways to Say Manishtana?
Absolutely.
So in there is a Klingon transliteration and has become a yearly classic in our family.
So I reference that
Whoa.
every year, looking for the next idea. And it actually inspired something beyond what I saw in this particular book. I was thinking, what if I make a Generation Alpha Haggadah and convert the entire English text into how they speak, how everything is fire and slay and so forth. But then, this is another one that where I'm developing an idea and it goes nowhere because it's really just 15 words that the skibbity toilet riz, my son says all the time. That makes no sense whatsoever, but it's a phrase. Um, and again, it's just 15 words. Now, if it was an entirely new vocabulary, if there were like 200 or 250 completely new revamped words that people were using, I think that would be a great idea, but it almost never is. Like every generation comes up with like 10, 15 new phrases, and the rest is just the usual
Or you
language.
could do a generational one. You could do
Yeah,
all generations together. You could do like, what I'm trying to say about that? You like have like stuff for like a boomer section, you have a silent generation section, a millennial section. You just do all different slangs for all people that are at the table. That could be really cool. You should do
So I was thinking
that.
about that, and we are definitely going to explore that idea a little more
All right.
because that also has been on my mind. This I'm
The
always
generational slang Haggadah. There you
yeah,
go. Haggadah. Yeah.
something to that effect. Because I'm a
See,
fan
we
of
just came up with your next one right here,
it could
Brian.
be.
We just
It
did
could
it.
be.
We just did it.
Yeah,
Love
absolutely.
it.
I'm a fan of language. I'm a fan of literature. I write and I write and I write. This is all I do. I'm a tech from 9 to 5, and I'm a writer from 5 to 9. That's how I position myself. And in more business parlance, I'm a writer by day, a technologist by night. Excuse me, the other way around. Technologist by day and a writer by night. I have that's my Batman and my Bruce Wayne. So ideas are constantly flowing in and out. So a generational slang, possibly. Um, all right,
All
just
right.
whatever works.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, it's been fun, man. I'm glad you set this up. I think we got some cool material to share. We should release this as like a podcast or something like that.
yeah,
Just get it out
absolutely.
there.
I will
You
make
want to send me
sure.
the file and when it's done recording?
Absolutely, I will hit the record button unless anyone wants to chime in of
Oh
our
yeah,
of
sorry.
our honored guests and ask a few questions. I'll be happy to record those for posterity. If not, thank you everyone so much for coming. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna hit the record button and perhaps we'll continue the conversation. Thank you
Thank you,
everyone
Martin.
for
That was
showing up.
great.
All right.